See, Krishna, he gives us an understanding of how to reconnect with the Purushottama, the Supreme Lord, by becoming freed from entanglement of this material world. So here, the entanglement of this world is compared to a banyan tree. It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Where do you see an inverted tree? Have you ever experienced seeing an inverted tree in your life?
No.
A tree is inverted when you see that tree in the reflection. So Krishna is trying to say, your existence within this material world is like residing on this tree, the inverted tree. It is illusory.
It's only the image.
It's just the image. It's not reality. As long as we are trying to find happiness within this tree, it is like chasing the mirage in the desert. When I was very small, I used to go to school and I used to look at grown-ups who go to college. And they had so much of free time. So I used to think that once school life is over, happiness in college life. But then you enter into a professional college. In the professional college, again you find happiness is elusive. Then you think, once I get a job, then maybe life will be better. Then you think, I have a job now, money is there. But once I get married, things will be better. Once you get married, you realize it's just the start. So, happiness in this world is elusive. It's like endlessly chasing the mirage.
But what is the way out?
What is the way out? With determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment.
That's the only way to get out of that. Right?
Yeah.
Why is detachment come? Pranam Prabhuji. So last time we ended chapter 14 and you mentioned about 15 being the Purushottama Yoga. That is the banyan tree and the inverted banyan tree. So over to you on knowledge on the banyan tree.
Yeah. See, Krishna, he gives us an understanding of how to reconnect with the Purushottama, the Supreme Lord, by becoming freed from entanglement of this material world. That is being explained. See, as I explained, the last 6 chapters are all about entanglement of this world and how to become freed from this entanglement. So here, the entanglement of this world is compared to a banyan tree.
I see.
Yes. Urdhva moolam adashakam ashwattam brahuravyayam chandam yasya pranani astam veda savide. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. See, here Krishna is describing a banyan tree, inverted banyan tree. Where do you see an inverted tree? Have you ever experienced seeing an inverted tree in your life?
No. But banyan tree I can understand. The roots coming from the top rather than coming from the down. Right?
Yeah. See, a tree is inverted when you see that tree in the reflection. So, the tree that Krishna is describing, Urdhva Adashakam, is a tree which is a reflection of the real tree. Correct? Suppose a tree is situated on the bank of a river. What is situated on the land is a real tree. What you can see in the water is an illusory tree.
Correct.
So Krishna is trying to say, your existence within this material world is like residing on this tree, the inverted tree. It is illusory.
It's only the image.
It's just the image. It's not reality. So, as long as we are trying to find happiness within this tree, it is like chasing the mirage in the desert. Mirage is also a reflection.
Correct.
See, many years ago, I was a kid at that time. I was with my aunt and we were waiting for a bus on the side of a road. And it was a very concrete road, freshly concreted. A tar road, freshly tarred. And from far I could see, it was a hot summer day, and I could see that from far there is water on the road. I told my aunt, there is water there. She said, there is no water there. I said, there is water, I can see it. I can see the reflection, I can see water. She said, go and see and come back. I ran there. There was no water. And the water went a little further. This is mirage. She explained that mirages are very visible in the desert. I never visited a desert. Have you?
Yes, we have.
People go on vacation for desert also nowadays?
Yes, not during summertime, but during winter time we can.
Winter time. That has also become a tourist destination
Yes,
nowadays.
yes.
So, mirage in a desert, you think there is water, and especially the animals, they think there is water, they go there, but there is no water. Then they see there is water ahead. Then they go there. You're constantly chasing the water and the water is running away from you. That's the nature of happiness in this world.
I see.
So happiness in this world is satisfied compared to a mirage. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. When you are a child, I distinctly remember when I was very small, I used to go to school, and school, you had to do homework, you had to give exams, and I used to look at children, students, grown-ups who go to college, and they had so much of free time, and many times their college wasn't as strenuous as life in a school. So I used to think that once school life is over, happiness in college life. College life, I thought, but then different level of anxiety, stress, and my parents created further illusion, saying that बेटा बस 11th और 12th अच्छे से पढ़ाई कर, बाद में आपका लाइफ बन
जाएगा.
That's the biggest lie a parent can say. So then you think like that. Afterwards there is happiness, but then you enter into a professional college. In the professional college, again you find happiness is elusive. Then you think, once I get a job, then maybe life will be better. Then you realize, then you think, once I get married, I have a job now, money is there, but once I get married, things will be better. Once you get married, you realize it's just the start. And then you feel, maybe if I have a kid, there is happiness. Once you have a kid, then another set of problems. So, happiness in this world is elusive. It's like endlessly chasing the mirage in the desert. See, what I'm going to say is a little off point, but I'm just reminded of that. How witty Prabhupada was, the founder of ISKCON. A reporter came to Prabhupada and he told him that you are a guru, and because you are a guru, you are supposed to know everything. So do you know how many windows are there in the Empire State Building in New York City? So it's like a big challenging question, isn't it? It's like your guru is supposed to know everything. What is the answer that Prabhupada gave? Prabhupada said, if you know how many drops of water are there in a mirage, what use is of that count?
I see.
See, the understanding is, Prabhupada at other times when the disciple asked, does the guru know everything? Prabhupada said that whatever Krishna wants me to know, I know. See, especially on the path of Bhakti, the guru is totally surrendered to God. The guru doesn't want to be all-knowing because God is all-knowing. And the guru is surrendered to God. Whatever God wants me to know, I know. It's a very humble position.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Krishna is telling here, this inverted banyan tree. So, this banyan tree is situated on what? Inverted banyan tree. It is situated on water, on the river water, isn't it?
Correct.
And that river water is compared to desire. Because desires exist, material desires exist in us, that is why we continue our journey within material existence. The moment desires dry up, the moment the water in the river dries up,
the illusion goes away.
The illusion goes away. This is the understanding. So then Krishna goes further here. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three gunas. The three gunas, they nourish. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Vivid description of the tree. Now what we should do, now that we are situated in this tree, what should be our course of action? Krishna explains. Naruvamasye tatopalabhyate nanto na chadir na jasam pratishta ashwathamenam suvirudha moolam asanga shastrena dhridena chitva. Now, if you start analyzing this particular tree, Narupamasya tatopalabhyate nantu na chade na cha sampratishta, you won't be able to find. Krishna explains. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. So it's like when you are stuck in a maze, it's very difficult for you to extricate yourself. Now that you are situated in the midst of this tree of material existence, to figure out the tree is extremely difficult. You are situated somewhere in the middle of the tree. Huge banyan tree, endless banyan tree. And the living entity is constantly moving from one branch to another, to another, to another. Correct? Initially the living entity is situated as a bird perhaps, then situated as an animal, then as a human being, and even amongst human beings, different levels of human existence. We are constantly changing branches within this tree. And being lost in this tree, we are lost in this tree, being lost in the tree is very difficult for us to figure out
where it begins and
where it begins, where it ends.
Or what is the way out?
What is the way out? So what we should do? Now that we find it very difficult to find our way out, what we should do? Krishna is giving us advice. Narupamasya tatopalabhyate nantona chadi naja sampratishta ashwattamenam suvirudamulam. Understand very well one thing. That is strongly rooted tree. So what we should do? Asangashastrena dhridena chitva. With determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. With the weapon of detachment, cut down this tree. That is the only way of extricating yourselves from this tree. There is no other way of extrication. But to cut it down through the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, after having, now that you don't have the tree, where do you go now?
I would have expected him to come back to Bhakti. That's the only way to get out of that. Really.
Yeah.
Why is detachment come?
Yeah, this is a very good question. You're asking very good questions from the past few sessions. See, yes, very good question here. Now to bring about that detachment is very difficult. Correct? Now how to bring about that detachment in a very feasible way?
I see.
That's the question. And that detachment can be brought about in a more feasible way through Bhakti. As you rightly pointed out. See, we are like children. Sometimes a child takes in its hand a sharp knife. Mother is busy cooking. And the child, without the knowledge of the mother, goes into the kitchen and takes a knife in its hand. And children tend to hold on to the knife like dear life. And the mother understands that this knife is very dangerous for the child. But if you tell the child, give up the knife, the child won't give up. Why? Because especially children, whatever you say, they'll do the exact opposite.
Correct.
But then, what the mother does is, she brings chocolate. Chocolate which is not harmful. Chocolate which is like positive, something positive for the child to hold. So in order to catch the chocolate,
it'll give up
it has to drop the knife automatically. Then when it gets the chocolate, out of danger. So similarly, we are like children. We know these material attachments are drowning us within this material existence. But to give up detachment, it's horrifying a lot of times. If for a child to give up knife, how can I give up knife? This is the only thing that I have to play. So in that scenario, so we shouldn't think too much about detachment. That is why. Good point. We should engage our mind in Bhakti Yoga. And when we develop positive attachment to Sri Krishna, automatically we'll lose attachment to the useless things of this world. Detachment comes about naturally.
Got it.
Through this. And Krishna is going to describe that in future verses. One must seek that place from which, once you cut down this tree, what do you do now? Tatapadam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yata pravritti prasrata purani. Tatapadam tat parimargitavyam. After having cut down this tree, you reach out for that ultimate destination which is beyond this material existence. See, Gyana, one Gyana is how to extricate ourselves, but Gyana is also to understand our destination. So Krishna is explaining that in these verses. So once you cut down the strongly rooted tree, thereafter one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. And there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. Ultimate goal of Jnanis, these are sections on Jnana Yoga. The goal of the Jnani ultimately is to what? Tameva chadyam purusham prapadye, to surrender to that Purusha. See, but traditionally the path of Jnana Yoga is develop detachment first, then you surrender. But the path of Bhakti Yoga is you surrender first, detachment develops automatically.
Automatic, yes.
So it's the easier path. It's more practical and feasible. And then, Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha dhyatma nitya vinivratta kama dvandver vimukta sukadukka samyen gacchante mura padam avyayam tap. Who is eligible to reach that supreme destination, Krishna says? Those are free from false prestige, illusion and false association. Association with materialistic things, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. And he speaks about that eternal kingdom in the next verse. Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yadgatva nivartante tadhama paramama. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or the moon, nor by fire or electricity. See, this material world is constitutionally a dark place.
That we discussed sometime in the past also, yes.
So we need lighting to light it up. So we have the sun, we have the moon, we have electricity, and all these things to light up the material existence. The spiritual world, because of the presence of God there,
Brahmajyoti.
the Brahmajyoti is the bodily rays from the body of Sri Krishna, is naturally effulgent, he is describing. And then he says, Yadgatvana nivartante tadha paramama. Those who reach it never return to this material world. How do you understand this? Is it that once you go there, abhi aa gaye to phas gaye? Aisa nahi hai. See, this is very interesting way in which he is describing the spiritual world. The description of the spiritual sky is given in very briefly in the Gita. More detailed description is there in the Bhagavatam actually. So, see, if the reflection has so much of variety, see, we said the material existence is a reflection of the real tree. So, if there is so much of variety in the reflected tree, won't there be variety in the real tree also? So, that is why if you go deeper into the scriptures, you understand that there is infinite variety in the spiritual sky also. Just like there is variety. Variety is a mother of enjoyment. And to the extent we understand the variety within the spiritual sky, we are inspired to enter into the spiritual sky also. Vaikunta planets.
Yeah.
They are situated in the Brahmajyoti. That is explained. So, when you go to a nice place, you don't feel like returning. That's the whole point here. The free will of the living entity is never taken, even when you enter into the Vaikunta planets. But then the person relishes life in spiritual world to such an extent that the person doesn't want to come back to the material world at all. A lot of times it happens. So people, they go from India abroad, they go. And abroad amenities are better, not much crowd. And then returning to India becomes unthinkable for them. It happens a lot of times. So Krishna is speaking along the same direction here. Except that spiritual world is flawless, unlike the countries of this world. Nowadays, even if you want to stay there, they won't allow you to stay. It's a new trend. But in the spiritual sky, you are always welcome. Mama evamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanadana manasashtani indriyani prakritistani kasati. The living entity in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So Krishna is telling, they are meant to be in the spiritual sky, but they are stuck in the material world because of manasashtani indriyani. Because of the influence of the senses and the mind, they are struggling hard within Prakriti. He explains this. And then he explains how they are struggling within material existence. Basically, their life within this tree of material existence, Krishna explains here. Shariram yadavapnoti yachapi utkramati ishvaraha grahitvedani sanyati vayurgandani vasha. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another. as the air carries aromas. Thus it takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. See, the living entity carries different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Air carries aromas, very beautiful analogy here. When an air passes through a gutter, the air develops a very nasty smell. But when the same air passes through a garden, which flower garden? Mallika flower. Then it will develop fragrance. The air is neutral. It has got nothing to do with the gutter nor with the garden. Similarly, the living entity soul is pure.
I see.
But as it goes through material existence, as it goes through tamasic situations, it develops tamoguna. And when it develops tamoguna, it enters into certain tamasic species. When the same living entity is exposed to sattva-guna, then what happens is goes in that direction and develops higher species. But ultimately the living entity is the same.
And on its own it is very pure.
Yeah. These different conceptions that the living entity adopts is circumstantial. Shotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam granameva cha adhishtaya manaschayam vijayana. The living entity thus taking another gross body obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose and sense of touch which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So, you enter through your conceptions of life according to the guna that you have built for yourself, you enter into a particular species of life, and according to the species that you have entered, you develop, by the grace of Prakriti or material nature, you develop a set of senses which is conducive for you. Once you enter into a tamasic species, for example, into the body of a cockroach, for example, suddenly garbage becomes very exciting to you. Because those senses are designed in such a way so that you are attracted to those things. See how beautiful, how marvelous is God's creation. It's tailor-made. The same thing that repels you attracts. So depending upon the consciousness that you have harbored, accordingly your senses also behave. So there is this story of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who lived in the late part of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century. He was the guru of Swami Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON. And so he had a lot of followers. So he used to take his followers on pilgrimage. So while he was on pilgrimage, they went to some remote location in some place in Burma. And their style was, wherever they went for pilgrimage, and especially during those times, food was never sold. Cooked food was never sold. Actually, it is considered to be a sin, actually, according to the scriptures, to sell cooked food. So, cooked food has to be given in charity for others. Anyway, so wherever they went, they used to have their pandal set up, they used to have their kitchen set up, and they used to cook for all the pilgrims. So in Burma, they had a tent erected, and they had a kitchen, and they were cooking hot puris, cooked in pure desi ghee. And suddenly, all the locals there, they started coming and they started complaining, "Itna baas kyun aa raha hai? Itna baas kyun aa raha hai? Band karo, baas band karo." So the smell of hot, fragrant ghee was obnoxious for them. Now, what was tasty for them?
Fish.
No. See, their delicacy. What was their delicacy? So they used to keep a pot in a central location in that particular community. And all through the year, any member of the community, if they found a dead insect, they used to put it all in that container. At the end of the year, whatever was there in that container, they used to cook something out of it and they used to relish it. This is the depth of tamasic food. And once a person has senses which relish that, naturally those senses will repel a smell that is sattvic. So this is very beautiful. See, once we engineer our senses by our lifestyle choices, then the senses naturally change their course.
Correct.
So, once Prabhupada, there's a story in the life of Swami Prabhupada ji that he visited one ISKCON center and then he went to the toilet there and he saw that the toilet is extremely unclean. And he came down on all the residents of that temple. He said that you are not chanting Hare Krishna properly. He said, no, we are chanting Hare. No, if you are chanting Hare Krishna properly, naturally you will develop Sattva Guna. And a person who is in Sattva Guna can't tolerate uncleanness. So you are not chanting properly. So it's a science. It's a science. See, that's what Krishna is telling here. In this way, a person moves from one species of life to another, like that. And then Krishna says, Utkramantam sitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanayatam vimudanu pashyanti narayana chakshu. This is happening all the time. We pass from one species to another, according to the choices that we have made. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. Can't understand. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Correct? One whose eyes is trained in knowledge can see all this through Gyana. Gyana Chakshu. There is Charma Chakshu and there is Gyana Chakshu. Charma Chakshu is the senses made of flesh.
I see.
Gyana Chakshu is eyes specifically. Charma Chakshu is eyes made of flesh. Gyana Chakshu is eyes made of knowledge. Through knowledge, when you see, then you understand. So with this knowledge, see now, once you understand the science of the three gunas, when you look at this world, you look at it in a different light. You know why things are happening.
Behaving the way it is.
Yeah, you understand why the things are the way they are. Why this person is struggling, why this person has a great time. You understand, you know the background, how things functions, you understand. This is knowledge, it's power of knowledge. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyanti admanyavastitham yatanto yapya kritatmano nainam pashyanti achetasa. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. So if you are endeavoring on the transcendental path, you will be able to see these things more and more clearly.
Correct.
But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Because when you are on the transcendental path, slowly but surely, you are progressing from tamogun, rajogun to sattvagun.
Your consciousness is
improving, and then you are able to perceive things also better. You are able to understand better. Now, how do we grow on this path? Krishna is going to give certain tips here. So now, Sri Krishna, he is going to give us some tips. Very important tip. A very important tip of how to grow our Gyana Chakshu. And growing of Gyana Chakshu is how to rise to Sattvaguna. He is going to give one formula. He has spoken in the past about, we had discussed it in a previous session. Mamcharyo avyabhicharena bhakti yogana sevate.
Unstinted devotion.
That helps us, we spoke about how it helps you grow on the path of Sattva. Now he is going to give another important tip.
I see.
In the next few verses.
Okay.
And this will cover in the next.
Hello, we'll see the tips the next time. We discuss Purushottama Yoga, the inverted banyan tree, and the concept of detachment. This tree, with roots upward and branches downward, whose leaves are the Vedic hymns, represents the illusion of existence in the material world. Trying to find happiness within this illusory tree is like chasing the mirage in the desert. It is an illusion and does not truly exist. This illusion ends only when our desires dry up. Figuring out the tree is extremely difficult, and the living entity is constantly moving from one branch to another. Since the tree is strongly rooted, one needs to cut it down through detachment. And detachment can be brought about most feasibly through bhakti or devotion. The traditional path of Gyana Yoga is to develop detachment first and then surrender. But the path of Bhakti Yoga is easier and more practical. Surrender first, and detachment develops automatically. The supreme destination is attainable by those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association with materialistic things, and those who understand the eternal and are done with material lust. We also learn that the material world is constitutionally dark, requiring light sources like the sun, moon, and electricity. However, the spiritual world is naturally illuminating due to the Brahma Jyoti, which are the bodily rays from the body of Shri Krishna. The living entity carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. On the other hand, the soul is pure, but as it goes through material existence and different modes of nature, gunas, it develops corresponding qualities and enters different species of life. And finally, growing one's Gyana Chakshu, eyes of knowledge, is equivalent to rising to the mode of goodness, sattva. Unstinted devotion helps one grow on the path of sattva.